What's that? You blocked out MAGCON from your memory? Don't worry, I'm here to remind you. Hi everyone, my name is Shawn and Troye, but you can call me T. And before we dive deep into the depths of the internet, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. MAGCON, or the Meet and Greet Convention, was created in 2013 by Bart Bordelon. I've known what MAGCON is for years, over a decade at this point, but I had no idea that it meant Meet and Greet Convention. I feel really slow right now. I hope I'm not alone. For some reason I thought MAG was short for like magazine because these boys wanted to be in a magazine. I don't know, dude. I was like a sophomore in high school when they hit it big, so don't judge a girl. I thought my logic made sense. According to Gawker, Bordelon saw an opportunity to capitalize on Vine stars and their screaming devoted fans. Basically, if you don't know what MAGCON is, just think One Direction meets Comic-Con, but like with way more snapbacks and less talent. It was like White Boy of the Month, but on steroids. And unfortunately for a lot of the rest of us, it was a super brilliant, profitable idea. I watched the first episode of Chasing Cameron on Netflix just to get a bit of background on how this all started. To their credit, they knew that social media was an opening for them. I mean, according to Cameron and his mom and his sister, he was really into the metrics of it all. He wanted to be a model, so he got really into Instagram, which eventually led to him having meetups with his followers. A lot of the other boys did this too, which caught Bart's attention, but we'll get to that in a little bit. It was basically just teenage boys that were considered conventionally attractive on the internet, throwing them on a tour and having a bunch of teenage girls go crazy over them. It was around April 2014, and the tour had made stops in like 8 different US cities. It all began in Houston, Texas, precisely on September 28th, 2013. Tickets had 3 different tiers: general admission, priority admission, and VIP. General admission, you could literally just watch the performers and then buy merch and nothing else. Priority, you were given the chance to potentially meet the Viners, but no guarantee. But if you wanted a guaranteed meet and greet, then you would spring for the VIP, which also got you a MAGCON t-shirt and a general admission ticket for the day you didn't have VIP. It was basically a social media fangirl's dream come true. That is, if you cared to meet these specific boys. The OG group featured about 12 different internet stars, only one being a girl. And the list featured Cameron Dallas, Aaron Carpenter, Jack and Jack, Shawn Mendes, Matthew Espinoza, Nash Greer, Hayes Greer, Carter Reynolds, Jacob Whitesides, Taylor Caniff, and Mahogany Locks. Out of all of those names today, I mean, I think we realize that we still only talk about Shawn Mendes. I wonder if Shawn Mendes still talks to any of these guys. Okay, let me get back to how it all started. Vine was at its peak in 2013, so a lot of these people were going viral just based off of 6-second clips. Now, there were differing sources saying that like Aaron Carpenter had met with Bart or Cameron Dallas met with Bart, but essentially Aaron Carpenter and Cameron Dallas were having meetups that they had thrown together, and they just would post on their Instagram stories and they'd be like, meet me at the mall on this date, and hundreds of their followers would show up. Aaron Carpenter, though, had become more popular through Twitter because of his funny photo captions. Essentially in October 2013, Aaron Carpenter had a meetup at a mall. He posted that he was gonna have a meet and greet to his 20,000 followers, and 200 people showed up, which is kind of a lot. Like, it was kind of unheard of at the time for 200 people to show up for just someone that was posting on social media. So it caught Bart's attention, who was like a family friend and an entrepreneur who lived in Louisiana. It says in the article that I read that he had lunch with Aaron's family, basically pitching the idea to replicate Aaron's success at the mall, but on a larger scale. And Aaron was on board and he was down, so he got his friends involved to recruit as other guests on the panel of the meet and greet of MAGCON. The only requirement was to have a massive social media following and to be friends with this guy. Most of the members of MAGCON were Southern based, understandably, because that was his connections, but there were a few that were living farther away, like Omaha or Ontario. But that is how MAGCON was born. I don't know how I would have reacted if I was Aaron's friend at the time and he calls me up and he's like, dude, there's this idea and we're gonna be so big and famous. It was unheard of for people to be getting famous off of stuff like this, and they're like, okay, like, are we sure anyone's gonna show up? No one showed up at my birthday party last year, so how do we know if there's gonna be a convention room of screaming girls showing up? So was MAGCON really just meeting and greeting? Was that really it? Sort of. The events of MAGCON MAGCON had aimed to be part concert, part comedy show, partially like a parasocial, chaotic hangout to make people feel like they were actually hanging out with them. The boys' videos on social media were considered funny by a good amount of people, but is that comedy show level funny? Could it transfer to a stage? What made these boys unique from any other guy? And honestly, there wasn't much, which kind of made MAGCON a fascinating point in history because there wasn't really much there. Like, I'm sorry. And one of the articles I was reading about this was that moms would show up with their daughters and they would be so confused because the show basically consisted of singing off key, throwing water at each other, dancing of some sort. It wasn't traditional at all. It was kind of like they just threw teenage boys on the stage without any direction and just kind of did whatever they felt like, and people were paying money for it. And you know what? I would do it too for a check. I would do it too for a check. If I just had to show up, do that, just that, and have no organization whatsoever and I'm getting paid, sure, why not? Where's the contract? Keep in mind, you guys, like, Vine is so much different than TikTok nowadays and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. It was literally only 6 seconds. Sold us on the smallest amount of content ever. Like, I'm talking crumbs compared to the oversaturation today. And then when girls would show up to MAGCON and be like, please sir, may I have some more? It continued to be the bare minimum and they ate it up. It was the farthest thing from polished traditional entertainment. And like I said, these girls did not care. I think the appeal of it all just really came back to the fact that the MAGCON boys felt really accessible. One fan explained that they're actually the same age as the MAGCON boys and they can meet them, which is why they preferred spending their money on a MAGCON event than seeing Justin Bieber or One Direction in concert. And it was a lot more affordable, with general admission starting at about like $32 for a MAGCON meet and greet. VIP tickets though, those were definitely pricier at $150, but still, like, that was still around the same price or cheaper than a concert ticket, and it guaranteed you to meet them. You could hug them, you could get autographs, you could talk to them, you could get selfies with them. It honestly felt like a too good to be true deal for some of these girls. They took such advantage of this that by 2014, according to SJR, the boys had millions of followers, sponsorship deals, and an army of fans who would do anything for a selfie. Although MAGCON has a ton of flaws, I can agree that MAGCON proved the success that social media stars can have today, if not more than a traditional celebrity at times. The MAGCON tours literally sold out venues, and they were becoming household names, at least in households of teenage girls. Their success was not only because of their likability with teenage girls, but also the fact that people didn't like them too. They were so polarizing. You either loved them or you hated them. I was so into Tumblr at the time. I was on the other end of the spectrum where I really did not like the appeal of the MAGCON boys, and I did not get the hype. Oh, just getting glitter everywhere. But it's okay. So it just got people talking about them and added more and more to their success, which made it peak internet culture at the time. But then the controversies arose, as they typically do. People loved them and hated them, and then when these controversies came out, it gave people who hated them even more reason to talk about them. The MAGCON boys' humor leaned heavily into caricatures of black culture. In majority, if not all of their videos, they also frequently twerked in a way to be quirky, despite their lineup not having any black people in it and their fan base being predominantly white girls. Which leads me into my next point. In addition to their cultural appropriation, they faced a lot of backlash for perpetuating harmful stereotypes towards teenage girls. Nash Grier, for instance, who I consider one of the main people in MAGCON, had a Vine mocking women and their use of makeup, demonstrating himself to have a cake face or other harmful depictions and going, girls be like, no makeup. And a bunch of the other boys, including Cameron Dallas, would join in on this type of content, mocking selfie culture and basically writing on women's insecurity, which fed into girls wanting to be the pick-me girl and like, I'm not like other girls. This escalated into the infamous YouTube video titled What Guys Look For in Girls. I don't know who gave them the authority to think they could post a video like this, because they're silly. They're absolutely silly for thinking they would get away with this. Nash Grier, Cameron Dallas, and JC Calen all sat on a couch for 9 minutes discussing what they like and what they don't like about girls, listing traits they found unattractive, which included body hair, loud personalities, and easiness. Justifiably, the video was wildly criticized. Even Hank Green had something to say about this. That's when you know you messed up. You got one of the Vlogs brothers, one of the Green brothers commenting on your shit. You are cooked. After everyone roasted them for posting this video for 5 days straight, they eventually took down the video, but their reputations, the damage had already been done. It broke the illusion for a lot of their fans hearing them talk about women like this, but there were still some that were drinking the Kool-Aid. But they did eventually meet their demise. MAGCON's rise was just as dramatic as their fall. It was very poetic. The first major blow also happened in 2014, where several key members left the group. It was kind of like a bit of an implosion thing. They cited that it was creative differences and conflicts with their management. In the episode I watched of Chase and Cameron, I mean, it seemed like the boys weren't getting paid on time, and then it was just like all these adults that were kind of fighting over their money. And you would think people wouldn't be devastated, but they were in fact devastated. Not only was the hashtag #RipMagCon trending on Twitter, but the hashtag cut for MagCon was trending on Twitter. Trigger warning, the hashtag is exactly as it sounds, which was really sad. It just showed the importance they played in very young and impressionable girls' lives. The parasocial relationship they had on them was at such a high magnitude. The fandom was in shambles. People really didn't know like what to do with themselves once MagCon had broken up. We've seen similar scenarios with boy bands, but it was just kind of weird to picture it with just these guys on the internet. There were a few efforts to bring it back, including a reunion tour in 2016, but they just didn't necessarily have the same magic, and people had moved on by that point. The internet is such a fast-paced place. If you didn't stay on the gas, then you were losing it. It really wasn't the same, and then Vine died along with it. All in all, the internet had changed, and so did the fans, like the girls who were growing up and they had grown out of them, and they didn't stick around to cultivate new ones. MagCon isn't a phase, mom, it's a lifestyle. Just kidding, it did turn out to be a phase. But why was MagCon so appealing? What made MagCon irresistible to young girls? Like I said in the video, they seemed much more attainable than Justin Bieber or One Direction. Again, the fact that the whole basis of MagCon was the fact that you could meet internet celebrities, that's enough to get people to go. Because the events felt intimate. It really just continued to feed into these parasocial relationships because they actually had interactions with them, which made fans believe they were building genuine connections with them. And maybe some of them did, but the majority definitely didn't. It just fed into the illusion. Couple that in with affordability of tickets, and you got yourself a success. So what happened to MagCon? Some thrived, and others faded into obscurity. I think we all can agree that Shawn Mendes is the most successful from MagCon. He started out singing 6-second covers of songs on Vine, and now he's a Grammy-nominated artist. What made him different from his peers? Well, he actually had talent. His performances at MagCon actually had substance, which made him more than just a pretty face. I even forgot that Shawn Mendes was in MagCon. I literally think the government erased it all from our minds. Has anyone ever called Shawn Mendes an industry plant? I think that would be hilarious. Like, that would be the nail in the coffin that people definitely forgot he was in MagCon. Cameron Dallas tried his hand at acting and his own musical career, and he had mixed results. Nash Greer seems to have mellowed out, becoming a dad vlogger. But as for the others, they seem to still have a social media presence of some sort, or they just disappeared completely. It's just so fascinating, like reflecting on my own personal time when this was all happening, because I was on the Tumblr side of things, and so I didn't really care for MagCon at all, and I agreed with a lot of the people on Tumblr talking about how problematic they were, because they were problematic. And I wonder if I was introduced to them at an earlier age, if I would have felt differently. I didn't really have that track record with celebrities anyway. It's just so interesting thinking about it, because it's like, could they even recreate something like MagCon today? And I don't know, it just seems way more competitive, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. In a way, I feel like Troye Sivan and Shawn Mendes are two sides of the same coin. Now hear me out. Shawn Mendes came from MagCon, and Troye Sivan was a YouTuber well beloved by the Tumblr community. So I picture them as two sides of the same coin because they have equal levels of success. They both came from opposite corners of the internet at the same time. They're both Grammy nominees. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong to think this. And I have to wonder, like, do you think they've discussed their origin stories together at like an award show? Or do you think they had like mutuals during that time? They'll have little hangouts like we do with our high school friends to rehash the same stories over and over again. Troye and Shawn are talking about how like Nash is about to have another kid. That's just how I would picture their friendship if it exists. I don't know if it does, but I would hope that it does. I like the idea of them being friends. Now I'm getting too parasocial on this video. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more from me, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you remember any of this or if I left out something, but I'll see you in the next video of Had to Be There.